Hello everyone. Welcome to Anthropology Analytica. I'm Dr. Arjun Bopanna, your anthropology faculty at InsightsIAS. In today's video, let us try to answer this particular question, that is Gordon V. Child's theory of cultural evolution. So this can be asked as a 10-marker question, a 15-marker, and neo-evolution itself can be asked as a 20-marker question. This is more important than classical evolution because it is much more scientific than the classical evolution. So as you all know, evolution was the first theory that was given by anthropologists and to explain the origin and evolution of culture. But obviously, the 19th century anthropologists, the classical anthropologists, they suffered from a lot of weaknesses. That means they did not do field studies. It was very conjunctural, and their theory lacked scientific, research or analysis. And many evidences went against the concept of their concept of evolution. So evolution as such was discredited for a long period of time, only to be, reinvented in the year in 20th century, in the mid of 20th century. So that is where that's the term that we give, that is neo-evolution. So neo-evolution is basically modification of the classical evolutionary theories in view of new research. Okay, so this was more research oriented. So in view of new research and methodological approach, the reinventing of classical evolution and trying to explain the origin and evolution of culture is called as neo-evolution. So we have several proponents and contributors to this theory. We have Gordon V. Child, L.A. White, Julian Stewart, Marshall Salins, and Elman Service, and all these guys who have contributed towards towards neo-evolution. Here they also talk about evolution as being evolutionary social change and development with regular pattern, etc. But here, how are they different from classical evolution? That is, they come with new evidence, right? And they focus on material culture because they will get evidence out of it. Because if you compare them with classical evolutionists even focused on concepts like myth, religion, kinship, and things like that, which does not leave material evidences. So the neo-evolutionists mainly focused on material culture, and they also gave importance to diffusion of culture, right? So that is the brief background of neo-evolution. So having understood this neo-evolution in this particular topic, when this question is asked, Gordon V. Child, it's an open-ended question. So you'll have to write multiple dimensions with respect to this particular topic. So here, a brief introduction of Gordon V. Child would be sufficient, or you can also give the introduction to neo-evolution. Just about 2 to 3 sentences enough. So brief introduction of Gordon V. Child, like he was an archaeologist and things like that. Or you can give the concept of neo-evolution and how they tried to modify the classical evolutionist in light of new approaches and research methodologies, etc. So that can be your introduction. And then you go on to explain the theory of cultural evolution, that is universal evolution, that was given by Gordon V. Child, which were based on archaeological finding and also based on Darwinian theory. So the various stages of evolution and the methodology based on which he comes up with his theory. And in the conclusion, you can give a critical note of Gordon V. Child. So this is how, all the dimensions has to be answered. In introduction, the different stages of evolution given by him, the methodology, his final conclusion, right? So that is important, and the critical evaluation in the conclusion. So this is what you are expected to write in 10 marker. And if you write all of this easily, around 7 to 8 marks, you will be able to get, right? Draw a flow chart and a table to explain the same thing. Now let me just quickly give you an idea of what all content, many specific content that has to be there in your answer. So he is the main proponent of universal evolution. If you compare with other new evolutionists, there is multilinear evolution, there is general and specific evolution. Gordon V. Child and L.A. White talk about universal evolution, right? So that is one point that has to be there in your answer, that he speaks about universal evolution, and his methodology or his approach has been based on archaeological and Darwinian principle. So that has to be also mentioned in your answer. So he says that culture developed in sequence of stages which were marked by evolutionary advances. So he described evolution in terms of three major events, that is food production, urbanization, and industrialization. Those things has to be there. So with respect to energy, actually it is L.A. White. You can just compare the two, right? So L.A. White talks about how more energy is harnessed from the environment, the more cultural development will take place. So all these stages, according to them, is universal. So that's why it's called as universal evolution, and culture is progressing towards a bolder civilization is the general understanding, right? So that is about universal evolution in general. Now, with respect to Gordon V. Child, some of the facts when you start writing. So this will be there in your third paragraph. So you will write that he's an archaeologist. In his book, Man Makes Himself, or his book Social Evolution, 1951. So these two books, or at least one book, Social Evolution 1951, where he gives his theory of universal evolution, should be mentioned. So he says three major events marked the evolution of society. That is, food production was the first, followed by urbanization, and then industrialization, etc. So next you will also have to write that he based his theory on archaeological findings. So there are clear-cut evidences which he gives based on archaeological findings, like Paleolithic and Mesolithic. He attributed it to cultural development, which is savagery. Neolithic to barbarism, copper to higher barbarism, and early Bronze and Iron Age to civilization. And further he goes on to write in his book that civilization is characterized by alphabet writing, towns, trade, complex religion, etc. So according to Child, the evolution was universal in every part of the world, and he gives archaeological evidences to prove that. You have to mention that. And then he says that it moved from savagery, barbarism, higher barbarism to civilization. So he says that evolution is isosequential. Okay, it is isosequential, isodirectional. Okay, but it's not isotemporal, meaning not everywhere the evolutionary stages were the same. Okay, so it varied from place to place. So it is isosequential. That means every society, it moved from in the same order and in the same direction. So isosequential, isodirectional, but not isotemporal. Further, his research methodology also involved Darwin's theory, and he related how biological evolution related that biological evolution with that of cultural evolution. He advocated Darwin's method to study universal evolution. If you have more space and time, you can write this additional points, but otherwise you can just simply mention that his research methodology include both archaeological as well as Darwin's method. So where he equates population size with adaptation process as Darwin's idea of selective fertilization. He equates technological efficiency of a society to genetic efficiency of a species. He equates innovation and invention of society to biological variation among the species. He equates cultural adaptation with adaptation and selection seen among the species. And diffusion happens even in the society, and like how hereditary, that means transmission of culture, takes place through hereditary. So that is something which you have to mention. So he did speak about diffusion. He did speak about migration that took place even in the prehistoric time. So that also has to be mentioned, that he believed in the principles of diffusion. So these are some of the points that you have to write with respect to the concept of universal evolution given by Gordon V. Child. And at the end, you can also criticize, give a criticism as a conclusion, very few lines, because it's not asked specifically. So you can say the criticism that he did not differentiate between old hunting and gathering societies and today's, although they had a significant difference. Then you can also say that many have criticized him of saying that he relied too much on archaeological data, too much on material culture. Then he tried to study the same culture through time, did not do a comparative study. So like this, somehow some criticism you already know has to be mentioned at the end of your answer. So these are the things that you need to write for this particular topic. That is, give a brief introduction to Gordon V. Child or neo-evolution, explain Gordon V. Child's universal evolution and the different stages and the evidences that he gives from archaeology and the methodology, that is Darwin's theory, and how he relates it with cultural evolution. And finally, in the conclusion, you can write a critical note. So I hope you understood what are the points that has to be written for this particular topic. In our next video, we shall discuss what are the basic tenets of Malinowski's functionalism. Very commonly asked question, Malinowski's functionalism. So this is what we'll be doing in the next video. I hope this video was useful. Thank you for watching.